The chamber gleamed with mirrored opulence, as if every surface had been polished with the fear of the conquered. Glass arches etched with gold veins arced above a sprawling hall, where the galaxy's elite lounged on silken perches, scaled, feathered, oiled, tentacled. Alien nobles draped in velvet membranes and ceremonial skins murmured, sipping liquors thick as oil. The air reeked of jasmine and arrogance. In the center, on a raised dais of obsidian and plasma, 10 human women stood barefoot in ceremonial chains. Their wrists were bound in silver that shimmered unnaturally, whispering static when they moved. Each was dressed in modest earth fabric, drapes that mocked modesty more than preserve it. They did not weep. Not anymore. Ambassador Jonah Merrick arrived without fanfare. No entourage, no banners. Just a man in a pressed navy suit, lapel pin gleaming faintly with Earth's seal, 2 olive branches and a scorched planet behind them. He walked with a fluidity that suggested leisure, but his eyes flicked like a blade honed thin, cold behind the warmth. Watching everything, calculating, smiling. Ah, drawled High Warden Frilash, the auction host, his wide maw splitting open in what approximated a grin. The human diplomat arrives. Alone as requested. How charmingly naive. Jonah extended a hand in greeting. Alone, yes, but not unarmed. We never travel completely unarmed, Warden. The warden's laughter gurgled from 3 throats. He did not shake the offered hand. The gathered aliens chuckled in their own tones, chirps, clicks, growls, whistles. The auction was already underway. Creatures from 4 star sectors had placed opening bids on the women. 1 for genetics, another for gestation experimentation, 1 collector seeking authentic Terran agony. A furry ambassador from the Vidari Confederacy offered a zoo wing. Jonah strolled through it all like a man at a dinner party. He complimented the gravity settings, commented on the champagne, though he did not sip, asked about the carpets, woven from extinct moon silk, deliciously decadent. He never once looked directly at the women. Not until he passed the dais. Then, in the space between 2 strides, he flicked his eyes upward. Brief contact. A woman, tall, African-featured, met his gaze and tilted her head by an imperceptible degree. Jonah's lips twitched. A smile like a code. Barely there. Then he moved on, hands behind his back. The auction resumed with pomp. A noble from the Shalhav Dominion, a gelatinous elder with 6 floating eyes, offered a vault of living diamonds in exchange for the blonde girl in the center. Her body type, he declared, was compatible with Shalhav tissue puppetry. Another offered neural transfer rights. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Jonah waited for silence, then cleared his throat. May I address the gathering briefly? Protocol dictates observers do not speak, hissed Warden Frilash. Jonah smiled. We Terrans enjoy bending rules. Very flexible species. You'd be amazed how far we can stretch. Frilash allowed it. With a flick of a claw, the hall dimmed slightly. All eyes turned to the human. He stepped into the center, gaze mild, voice calm. I just wanted to thank you, he began, folding his hands politely. On behalf of Earth, for your hospitality, the hors d'oeuvres, the cultural education, and of course, he gestured gently toward the women. This unexpected reunion. Some in the audience laughed. Others shifted. I understand, he continued, that humans are still somewhat of a novelty. Primitive, emotional, fragile. He nodded sympathetically. Easily conquered. Or so the archives suggest. A ripple moved through the crowd. Something in his tone. The phrasing. We're often underestimated, he said. We like that. We've learned to weaponize perception. Smile while planning. Cry while loading. Bleed while counting your weaknesses. He paced slowly, now, every step quiet. Calculated. The room had chilled. There's an old Earth proverb, he said, voice lower. You never know what a man will do for a woman, or a nation for 10 of them. One of the women on the dais moved, and though the chains clinked, there was something in her posture, shoulders squared, chin tilted, that unsettled several alien attendees. Frilash narrowed his yellow eyes. Is this speech going somewhere, Ambassador? Jonah paused, tilted his head. Oh yes. but not upward. Silence. He tapped his wrist. A light blinked once, then darkened. A slow, subtle hum coursed through the floor, unnoticed by most. A few sensitive species shivered. 41 minutes, he murmured, as if to himself. Then louder. That's how long I've been here. You'd be surprised how much can be done in 41 minutes. Mapping grav stabilizers. Uploading a neural worm to your comms. Positioning. He trailed off. Smiled again. Context. The alien nobles stirred. The mood fractured like crystal under pressure. A Drayan matron with sapphire mandibles clicked harshly. Are you threatening the sovereign auction of the Galactic Council? Threaten. Jonah blinked. We don't threaten. We respond. Eventually. Thoroughly. Warden Frillash sneered. You claim to speak for a species whose best soldiers lost to slime beasts in your own asteroid belts. Jonah chuckled. That's true. We're quite the mess. Except sometimes the mess is bait. More unease. The Shalhab elders' eyes rotated restlessly. Jonah took a step back. But you know what I really came to say? Thank you. Thank us. Frillash hissed. Yes, Jonah said, for gathering yourselves so efficiently. It's hard to find you all in one place normally. Silence. As if the whole hall held its breath. Jonah continued, softer. See, you didn't just auction humans today. You signed the audience list for your own sentencing. A tremor flickered in the walls. Some dismissed it as ship turbulence. Others didn't. Jonah's expression was still genial, still friendly. But his words cut sharper now. One of you tried to touch a woman on that dais earlier. The bones in your forearm have already begun to disintegrate. Nanospore exposure. Very delicate stuff. The Vidari collector stood up. Security. This is. Delayed response is a Terran hallmark. Jonah interrupted calmly. Ask our last invaders. Oh wait, you can't. They don't have mouths anymore. The lights above flickered. This time noticeably. A few nobles made toward the exits. The doors didn't open. Jonah looked at the warden. We're not here to rescue them. That's the part one think you'll really regret misunderstanding. We let you hold this event. Publicly. Broadcasted. The warden rose in fury, claws out. You insolent mammal. I'm not insolent, Jonah replied. I'm a pacifist. You should meet our soldiers. He gestured to the dais. And there, finally, the illusion cracked. One of the women, short, red-haired, freckled, cracked her knuckles. Chains undone, completely unshackled. She stepped forward, spine straight as steel. Another followed. Then a third. Their eyes were not fearful. They were waiting, watching. Weapons not visible, but presence unmistakable. Jonah turned back to the audience. So, shall we begin phase 2? A siren began to scream, and far beyond the glimmering glass canopy above them, a shadow shifted in orbit, black, predatory, and vast. The first Terran vessel uncloaked. The scream of the siren cut through the air like a bone saw, shrill, uneven, not pre-programmed, not protocol. In the seconds that followed, the auction hall fractured. Alien nobles surged from their thrones, their silks and scale robes dragging behind them like the tails of startled animals. Confusion bloomed. Fear followed. Jonah Merrick didn't move. He stood at the center of the chaos, smoothing his sleeves. His expression remained polite, curious even, like a man watching a wine stain spread across antique linen. A voice crackled in his earpiece, low, raspy, and smug. You got 2 minutes, Ambassador. Then I start poking things. Understood, he murmured. 2 decks below, Colonel Magdalene Hart adjusted her knuckle guards and smirked at a blinking console. A severed security drone sparked behind her. She kicked it aside like a broken toy. Cargo status, she asked. Confirmed, all assets secure, replied a woman beside her. Lieutenant Dorsey, early 30s, half her face covered in a burn scar camouflage mesh. The girls dropped the disguise field. They're synced. No casualties. Mags popped her jaw. Good. I hate pretending they're fragile. The alien guards in that corridor were no longer moving. 6 bodies lay slumped by the access lift, stabbed, silenced, or smart-darted. A 7th twitched. Dorsey finished the job without breaking stride. Above them, on the broadcasted floor, Warden Frilash's voice thundered over the speakers. System anomaly. Remain calm. Station security is resolving the issue. Jonah looked up, chin tilting. Resolving. That's an ambitious word. Frilash barked an order to his aides, but only one responded. The others were frozen at their terminals, unsure which part of their code was real and which had been rewritten. The Drayan tactician, Nalik, stood apart from the others. Her 6 limbs folded, her massive, multifaceted eyes tracking everything. Jonah, the women, the guards, the shivering nobles. Something's wrong, she muttered. No, whispered a pale diplomat beside her. Something's happening. And indeed it was. Jonah turned to the dais, where all 10 women now stood unbound. The blonde at center, call sign Merida, tossed aside the silver chain and cracked her neck left, then right. Good to see you, sir, she said without looking at him. He offered a half smile. You always know how to make an entrance. Just give the word. Patience. Across the room, the exits shimmered. What appeared to be doors morphed into smooth, seamless walls. Panic multiplied. Species unused to being prey tasted it for the first time. From the shadows near the eastern column, a Varnak general surged forward, dragging a plasma blade from his belt. Amphibian skin glistening, war medals bouncing on his plated chest. Seize the women, he roared. Slaughter the earthling. A heartbeat later, a dart embedded in his throat. He dropped like wet laundry. Mag's voice came through the comms again. Jonah, you're exposed. Always, he replied. That's the art. Below, the station began to hum. A low, guttural sound. Half machine, half wounded animal. Lieutenant Dorsey frowned. Is that supposed to be happening? Mag snorted. Only if someone left the fusion spine unlocked. In the auction hall, Frilash's claws clattered across the podium as he shrieked into the calm grid. Static answered. Jonah approached the dais, hand still behind his back, gaze steady. You know, he said conversationally, we don't enjoy doing this. You force our hand. Again and again. It's almost boring. Nalik stepped forward. Her voice was precise, clipped. Why now? Why here? You waited. Yes, Jonah said softly. We waited for the cameras, for the attendants, for the history books. The Shaliv elder gurgled nervously. This is an act of war. Wrong, Merida said from the dais. It's the end of one. Nalik's gaze flicked between Jonah and the women. This wasn't a rescue mission, was it? No, Jonah said. This was theater. And now we're done bowing. Mags, meanwhile, ascended a private lift shaft. Old maintenance access, once used for cooling crates. She and her squad were silent now. Dorsey held a breacher round. The others carried short-blade rifles, compacted for indoor use. 30 seconds to haul breech, Dorsey whispered. On my mark, Mag said. We go loud when the diplomat stops smiling. In the auction hall, Frilash screeched in panic. Your fleet is banned in this system. Correct, Jonah replied, checking his watch. But our allies were already in system. Our fleet. He smiled wider. We brought it with us. The air above the auction hall shimmered. A holographic display flickered to life, hijacked from the station's own ceremonial projectors. It showed a black silhouette, impossibly large, drifting into orbit. Gasps rose. That's not possible, someone whispered. Nalik knew better. That's a Terran, cloaked dreadnought. It's real. Jonah didn't respond. He didn't need to. Far above, the ship labeled HSS Melancholy released its cloak fully. The words painted across its side read simply, We warned you. Drop shields, Jonah said calmly. Mags kicked the vent cover open. Her team burst into the hall with military grace. Weapons drawn, expressions flat. Panic erupted. Some alien nobles fainted outright. Others scrambled behind pillars. A few tried to draw weapons and were cut down in seconds. Jonah stepped back. As of now, he said, this auction is canceled. Merida walked down from the dais. We're 10. You thought we were 10 captives. That's how you measure strength, bodies and chains. One of the nobles stammered, "You're not even enhanced. You're just women." Merida looked at him like one might inspect a broken stapler. "I'm an orbital engineer. That one's a cultural psyop. The twins are codebreakers. The tall girl's a sniper. We were never for sale. We were bait." The nobles looked to Frillash, but his hands trembled. His bravado dissolved like sugar in rain. Jonah approached him slowly. "You know the worst part?" he asked. "We gave you a chance. You could have walked away after the first abduction. You could have stopped. But you saw softness, and you thought it meant surrender." A pause. Then, almost gently, "We don't surrender." Behind them, a new tremor rocked the station. The floor shifted half an inch downward. "Report." Jonah asked. Mags touched her earpiece. Phase 3 initiated. Auto-destructs on the Empire's subnodes are blinking green. "Just waiting on your voice, diplomat." Jonah turned slowly. He faced the surviving nobles. Those who still stood, who still clung to pride like a shawl against cold. "Let me be clear," he said. "We came here with no demand, no negotiation, no offer." Merida stepped beside him. This was never about diplomacy. This was closure. And then the power went out. Total black. A single emergency light flickered red, painting Jonah's face in pulsing shadow. He leaned in close to Frillash, who could barely breathe. "Next time you want to auction off our daughters," he whispered, "you'd better check what's standing behind them." Frillash opened his mouth, then froze. His pupils contracted. His console, still running on auxiliary power, displayed a single blinking message. "Countdown 8 o'clock. Jonah straightened his jacket. "Courtesy, Warden. You've got 8 minutes to decide what kind of memory your species leaves behind." And then he turned away, boots clicking over glass, as the station began to groan. Smoke curled along the floor in thin tendrils, dragged by artificial gravity and the whispers of dying systems. The great auction hall, once decadent with laughter, light, and vile ambition, now smoldered beneath red emergency strobes and the click-click-click of Terran boots on polished obsidian. Every sound mattered now. Every breath was loaded. Jonah Merrick adjusted his cuffs again, though one was stained with alien blood, blue, tacky, drying fast. He didn't flinch at the scent. Diplomats were used to messes. Just not always this literal. Colonel Maggs strode beside him. Combat rifle relaxed in her hands like an old friend. She had holstered her humor for the time being, though Jonah suspected it simmered under the surface. She was chewing mint gum. Always did during hostage extractions. "Well," she said without looking at him, "you said subtle. This is about as subtle as a brick through a stained glass window." Jonah gave a faint smile. The glass was already cracked. "We just encouraged honesty." Behind them, the 10 women spread out in strategic formation. They moved like veterans, no wasted motion, no hesitation. Not captives, not even soldiers, really. Operatives. Each one trained in a different branch of what humanity now called humane vengeance. Merida flicked on a wrist console. Secondaries armed. Local feeds hijacked. Every broadcast tower in a 10-sector radius is now showing this room. Live. Dorsey added, "We boosted the translation protocols. Even species that don't have a word for regret are learning it." A scream echoed down the corridor. Brief. Wet. Nalick, the Drayan tactician, emerged from a side entrance, dragging a wounded ambassador whose name no longer mattered. She dropped him like a satchel of bones. Her blue-black eyes, refracted 100 times over, fixed on Jonah. "I warned them," she said. "They laughed. You should have seen them laugh." Jonah dipped his head. "I did." She stepped closer. "I still don't understand you." "Good," he said, turning toward the dais. Understanding ruins the surprise. Elsewhere in the station, doors buckled from within. You could hear them failing, locks coughing out corrupted code, hinges whining like injured prey. One by one, control rooms were breached. Not by armies. By whispers in code. By hacks, so elegant the doors practically wanted to open. Maggs tapped a data chip into the podium slot. The screen flared. then cleared to show a galaxy-wide broadcast feed. Alien faces watching. Billions. Some in real time, others delayed by light years. It didn't matter. They would see. Jonah leaned forward. To all attending systems, he began, voice smooth as silk on glass. You have witnessed the galactic empire's trade in sapient lives. You've seen what they call entertainment, breeding rights, organ valuation, neural puppetry. Gasps, even from those who had bid. You've also seen the mistake. He stepped aside. Merida took his place, lifting the ceremonial chain she'd been shackled with. She held it aloft, then let it fall. The clang echoed like a bell rung for war. We let this happen, she said. Not because we were weak, but because we needed you all in the same room, same feed, same guilt. Dorsey chimed in. You think Earth is small. You think our kindness means submission. You're wrong. Nalek's gaze shifted, calculating. This is retaliation. Jonah nodded. Not quite. This is education. Frilash's voice burst through a hidden intercom panel, ragged and desperate. You'll doom us all. This station holds treaty nobles. Half the Empire is represented here. That's the point, Mags muttered. Jonah raised his voice again. In 30 minutes, this station will cease to exist. Unless the following conditions are met. 1. Immediate universal ban on the auction of human lives. 2. The unconditional release of all Terran captives across known space. 3. Recorded confessions from every Empire official involved, to be delivered via this broadcast stream. If not. He paused, just long enough for every watcher to lean in. Then we finished the lesson. A whimper came from a corner. One of the lesser nobles, a squid-like delegate from the Aldish spiral, dropped to his knees. Please, we didn't know. Jonah looked at him. No, you didn't care. Alarms blared again. Sector 9's fuel corridor vented atmosphere. A flash of white light followed. Dorsey checked her readout. That's the first warning shot. Mags cracked her gum. We've got about 12 more before this place becomes a cautionary tale in someone's schoolbook. Nalek watched them all in silence. Her mind moved like cold stars shifting behind a nebula, slow, but inevitable. Finally she asked, if you destroy this station, you'll destabilize the entire sector. Yes, Jonah said, but not before we stabilize justice. I could have been your ally, she said. You still might be, he replied. But the tide's already in. You can't stop the water. Only decide what side of the shore you stand on. A heavy tremor rocked the floor. The countdown blinked to 1600 hours. Across the galaxy, thousands of species watched as human tacticians, soldiers, and survivors took control of one of the most powerful strongholds in the Empire without a single declaration of war. With only smiles, and chains, and detonators. Frilash's voice crackled again, more pitiful now. What do you want? Mags muttered. Didn't he listen? Jonah leaned closer to the camera. We want silence. No more ships disappearing into dark zones. No more girls taken for profit. No more auctions. He paused, then added, we want your children to fear what you taught them to dismiss. In the corridor behind them, a new sound rose. A soft, rhythmic thrum. Boots. Lots of them. Alien soldiers. Reinforcements. Late to the party. Mags glanced at Jonah. He nodded. The operatives readied their weapons. Here comes Act 3, Dorsey said, flicking off the safety. The first alien soldier to enter the room didn't even see the blade that slit his jugular. He fell without sound. The second got a shot off, struck the wall, before being dropped by a stun spike to the neck. A full squad rushed in. And then things blurred. Merida spun into a low crouch, fired a tranquilizer burst into a sniper's face. Dorsey backflipped over a console and tossed a 2-ton brute into a drooling spasm. Mags took a plasma bolt to the shoulder and didn't stop moving. Jonah stood still through all of it, hands behind his back, watching, waiting. Finally, as the last attacker fell, twitching, to the floor, Jonah turned to the camera once more. His voice calm, his tie straight. We have our own diplomacy now. You call it madness. We call it balance. The feed crackled. All across the galaxy, a new symbol appeared on screen. It was simple, a Terran hand, open, palm forward. But behind it, etched faintly, was a map of stars and fire. A message followed, broadcast in every language, every dialect, every pulse code. Earth is done asking. And then, beneath the smoldering station, far below the orbiting dreadnought, 3 more ships uncloaked. Quietly, without name, without flag, Frillash saw them on his final console and whispered, "What are those?" Jonah looked down at the warden and said, "Only the ones we didn't name. The ones we don't bring unless you've already lost." The countdown read 3 o'clock, and still not a single human had raised their voice. The blast shutters peeled open one by one as emergency overrides failed. The stars outside no longer blinked. They stared, cold and relentless. 3 Terran ships drifted into view, vast and unhurried. They made no demands, no broadcasted threats. Their silence was louder than any weapon. Inside the auction station, Jonah Merrick paced a corridor now littered with scorched marble and fallen banners. His jacket was torn at the cuff. Blood, alien mostly, dotted the hem. He walked without hurry, as if returning to an unfinished lecture. Colonel Maggs walked beside him, arm now wrapped in scent gauze, chewing hard on mint gum like it was fury in stick form. "They're not surrendering," she said. "Not one of them." "They never do when it would be easiest," Jonah replied. "That's why we planned for the hard way." Merida's voice cut in over the comm, broadcasts holding steady. 79 billion live views and counting. "Want me to patch into the Imperial archives?" "Do it," Jonah said. "Let their past crimes testify against them." Behind them, the hall flickered as wall panels revealed long-forgotten murals, painted when the auction house was first built. Once it had been a place of trade and negotiation, but over time it had become a stage for entitlement, for rot, and now for reckoning. In a locked chamber near the station's core, Warden Frillash clutched a control node in his trembling claws. His golden-laid armor was cracked. Sweat matted the fur beneath his gills. Around him, his private guard had either fallen or abandoned him. He stared at the countdown, 2:03, and then at the static-filled broadcast feed. He hadn't believed it. Not at first. The idea that humans would go to such lengths, that they would wait this long, that they'd embed spies, feign weakness, weaponize mercy. But the footage showed what disbelief wouldn't allow. Terran dreadnoughts holding orbit like gods at a funeral. He slammed a claw into the console. "They're bluffing. They won't destroy this station. They'll never sacrifice so many nobles." "They didn't come for nobles." Frillash spun. Nalek stood in the threshold, arms folded across her thorax. Her armor was singed, one leg dragging slightly, but her voice carried the weight of clarity. "They came for consequence." Frillash bared his teeth. You were on their side all along." "No," Nalek said, "but I've seen enough of yours." Back in the control corridor, Jonah stopped before a sealed door and knocked, once casually. Inside, a translator drone activated. The room was full of alien dignitaries, cowards, most of them, now huddled in what had been a wine cellar for Imperial guests. No one answered. Jonah nodded. "We offered diplomacy. We led with kindness. You auctioned our daughters." He didn't raise his voice. He never did. "You saw our patience and mistook it for permission." A bang sounded, metal on metal, then a whimper. Someone had fallen. The broadcast cameras, still live, caught it all. The universe was watching not just the fall of a building, but the dismantling of arrogance dressed in imperial silk. Merida and Dorsey entered the auction floor again, now a ruin of torches and broken thrones. Merida tossed a set of imperial medallions into the fire pit. "Guess the Empire's out of badges," she muttered. Dorsey didn't smile. "We should go. 2 minutes means 2 minutes." The surviving Terran operatives moved fast now. No orders were barked. Everything was muscle memory. Jonah reappeared at the hall's main arch just as Nalek approached him. Her gaze, refracted in 100 lenses, searched his face for something more than cruelty. She found resolve instead, Does it have to end like this? She asked. No, Jonah said. It had to begin like this. Nalik's mandibles clicked softly. You've made your point. Jonah shook his head. Our point isn't made until it's remembered. Dorsey called out, charges armed. Evac ship primed. Jonah turned to Mags. Bring the warden. Mags disappeared down a corridor. Seconds later, she returned, dragging Frillash by one elbow. He struggled, but the fight had long since bled out of him. You won't survive this, he growled. They'll come for you. The whole Empire will come for you. Mags pushed him to his knees. Then we'll finally get a fair fight. Frillash's gaze locked with Jonah's. You're monsters. No, Jonah said, kneeling so their eyes were level. We're mirrors. You just don't like what we reflect. He stood. Set the charge, he said. A final tremor rippled through the station. Floor tiles cracked. Ceiling joints groaned. Countdown 042. The evac ship opened its bay with a hiss. Jonah ushered his team aboard, one by one. Merida paused beside him. You sure we let enough of them live? They'll spread the story, Jonah said. Survivors always do. Better than footage. She nodded and climbed aboard. Nalik remained behind. Not to stop them. To witness. Jonah looked back once, eyes catching hers across the smoke and ruins. Tell them, he said. We could have been friends. Then he vanished inside the shuttle, and the bay doors closed like the lid of a coffin. From orbit, the Terran dreadnoughts turned in perfect synchrony. The feed went silent, and then the auction station that had once brokered the dignity of 10 Terran women and countless others exploded in a sphere of light so wide it carved a scar across the system's asteroid belt. It was not tactical. It was not revenge. It was payment. And the galaxy, watching with bated breath, now knew the bill had come due.